Hello, welcome to the show. I'm Suzanne Lynn. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, a very special featured guest author, Vivianne Knebel. She wrote From Rubble to Champagne, Rising from the Ashes of War-Torn Berlin to a Life of Grace, Beauty, and Gratitude. And Vivianne, I want to start right off the bat. When we talk about the very difficult childhood that you had, we're gonna dive into that. And we're gonna move into how you moved to Canada to try to escape that. Let's start right out of the bat with the lowest point in your life where you
Well,
didn't even want to go on anymore. Tell
well,
me
that
about
was the lowest point of my life. Actually, came when I was 17. It just kind of built up to that lowest point. I was born in illegitimate to a fiercely devoted mother, and that was in Berlin, 1943, at the epicenter of Nazi Germany. And so this was is quite difficult for my mother to survive with two illegitimate children. I have a sister by another father, and very difficult for her to survive. And after the war was over, I was 2 years old, and from the time I started to actually can think back, can remember, it was. The I just all I remember is rubble and destruction. I grew up among rubble and destruction, and my I can only remember hunger and cold. It was a constant, and so my mother struggled to keep us afloat, and she had a very unique way of surviving. She worked in the black market, striking deals, and sewing braziers, anything just to have an income to make it with us. And eventually she connected with an old schoolmate, with a schoolmate from way back. He just had returned from Siberia. He was imprisoned for 5 years in Siberia, and most people did not even return from Siberia, and they were on the constant, edge of starvation. And I know he told us the story one day. He stole a piece of bread, which was a major crime, and he got severe beating as a punishment. And I think that affected him later on too. But in any case, he moved in with us. At first, I was so glad my mother brought him home, and he said, "Now you have a father." And I always longed so much for a father, and I called him Papa right away. And whereas my sister was 2.5 years older, she was a little bit more reserved. I was delighted to have a father. He sewed clothes for us. We started to eat regular meals because before that, another way to survive, I took a little pail and went every day to a big department store that had been rebuilt in Berlin, that had just been rebuilt. I still remember it being in rubble, but when I was about 6, I went over there with that little pail and I asked for scraps. And so they gave me chicken heads and fish heads, and I take them home to my mother, and she'd make soup out of it. And uh, I to put get some dignity into this. I said, because it was embarrassing for me, I said it's for my cat. And one day, the one of the men who gave me this behind the counter, he said, "Are you sure it's for your cat?" And I thought that was really cruel. I almost sank into the ground. So I was humiliated. But in any case, I was too hungry, so I just stayed on my mission, and I went every day, and I collected wooden boxes to make a fire so my mother could cook. And so that was before she connected with this man who she later married, this tailor. And I was delighted to finally have a father. And he moved in, but then everything changed, because once he moved in, we saw another side of him. Every weekend, he worked hard during the week, but every weekend he drank and he would stay away. And I remember our first Christmas, he didn't, we waited for hours, for him to come home, and he did not even come home. And then my mother had brutal fights with him, verbal fights, brutal fights, and sometimes even physical. And so I remember saying to myself, when I grow up, I'm going to marry someone with whom I will have harmony. I never wanted to fight, and I'm to this day like this. I cannot have fights. So in any case, my mother, we begged her to leave him, but she couldn't. She had to cling on to him because he was a meal ticket. And she said that to us. Remember, it's a meal ticket. She could not survive on her own with the two of us. So eventually they immigrated to Canada.
You were hoping for a better life at this point.
Absolutely.
This was your saving grace out of the rubble and despair.
Yes. And they called it the land of milk and honey. Everybody thought, oh, Canada, the great. And the possibilities certainly were there. But as we arrived, we thought now our troubles are over. But then we came into despair once again, because the first winter he could not find a job as a tailor. And we went hungry. So my mother, the only thing she knew what to do, she was a survivor, so she always found some way to survive. She took me by the hand and we went into a church, and I explained my plight, or our plight, to the priest with broken English, with what little English I could speak. And the priest sympathetically handed us $35 to help us. And my mother immediately went out and got flour and rice, the staples. And then at the age of 14, I left school, and my mother had to get a special permit because in order to work. 14, that was because of the protection for children, child labor law. She had to get that special permit. But I was delighted to work, and I was full of hope. And I got a job at a dentist who wanted to train me as a dental assistant. And I was always eager to learn, always put my best foot forward. But I had a rude awakening because I faced severe sexual harassment. I was only 14, actually a child inside, totally innocent. I looked developed, but I was so innocent. And I didn't know how to, it was not by him, but one of his friends who came in when he was not there. And I struggled. You would not believe how I struggled to tell my boss, because it was horrifying to me to explain how he touched me. This is just, it was horrifying to me. But I thought back and forth, and I thought, I must tell him, because he'll come back and do it again. So I did explain to him. He totally understood, and he said he will never come to this office again. But I left the office. I left that workplace. And then I started to work for Woolworths, the 5 and 10 cent store. And I worked behind the lunch counter, waited on the counter and made sandwiches with care and heart, since I always wanted to please. And actually, I enjoyed it, but at the same time, I wanted to improve my station in life. I wanted to get a better job, wanted to make something out of myself. So I went to night school. I learned typing and stenography, and I got a job at Volkswagen Sales and Service, that German car company, the little bug.
Yes.
And I got that job there, but I was so unhappy there, because I worked in a large room in the accounting department with many desks with women over twice my age. And there was no camaraderie, no connection. And I did not want their lives to be mine. And I thought all my efforts are in vain. And I fell, slipped into deep depression.
Do you think that everything from your childhood finally caught up with you at this
think
point?
So.
It was just the final.
On the
Yes, it was the final tiny pebble on top. Yes.
I felt always I had very, very low esteem. Number one, for the Nazis, it was taboo to be illegitimate. And it was a double whammy, with my sister being illegitimate as well. They hated foreigners. I was considered a foreigner and I was put in my mother's passport, deemed as stateless. They deemed me as stateless. So I had no sense of belonging. And in school, I struggled, even though I remember holding my notebook before I started school. I remember holding my notebook and saying, I'm going to do well. I'm going to do my best. And again, a rude awakening. I could not follow the concepts of the teacher as hard as I tried. It was not that I was unintelligent in any way. It was I needed a different method. And of course, they
Absolutely.
didn't care. And they just, before I
Right.
got it, I had to file it all away. Before I got it, they were already further along.
Everybody
So
learns the same
a
way, and that,
different, yeah.
but you
But for
sunk into
me,
this deep depression.
yeah. Then I
Let's
saw
talk about that.
at 17, yes, at 17, they are working in the, but the reason why I said this, I just explained this to you, is the low self-esteem that built up. So at 17, I thought this life, all my efforts are in vain. And I heard somewhere that when you start a motor of the car and close the garage door, that the carbon monoxide would render you unconscious. And then you would just drift off to your ultimate end. And that's what I did. I started the motor, closed the garage door, and waited for the end. And all of a sudden, a little girl at the age, she must have been around 6, I assumed she was 6, stood in front of me and she asked me, "What are you doing?" And I immediately turned off the motor, opened the garage door, and answered meekly, "I'm going to wash my car." It's some excuse. And then I thought, how did she get here? I thought no one would enter because it was only the garage that I had rented for my little used car that I had bought. And so I saw a side door and she must have come in that side door. So I got it. And then I had that, she skipped off blissfully, unaware
She
that she
saved
just
your
saved my
life.
life. Yeah.
Yes,
And I believe that little girl, as the more I think about her, and I don't even remember her name, but I believe there was a purpose in that. I'm now 77 years old, you start to reflect much more. You see, you
absolutely.
analyze life. So even though I was always analytical, but more so now, of course. And so I thought, that the purpose is probably that I was supposed to help others, perhaps, you know, help others that feel defeated or suppressed later on.
Yes.
This is the book that I want to, the message that I want to give with my book. That don't
Yes.
despair. Times will get better. Life is not static. It will change even if you don't want it to. But you
Yes.
don't see that as a young person. You don't see that when you're 17. There's so little perspective when you're so young. That's why
Absolutely.
I feel that we need to love those young people that are in despair. We need to give them love, support, and understanding. We owe that to them because they cannot cope.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if I can get that message, that is a mission. It's almost a mission for me. So
Well, we are just talking to Vivianne Knebel, from Rubble to Champagne, rising from the ashes of war-torn Berlin to a life of grace, beauty, and gratitude. And Vivian, I just think it's so easy for us to look at our own situations and think at the time that we're in it, we can't see anything good coming out of this. But something that struck me about you before we started the interview, you said, "I'm glad that I went through what I did." And that absolutely stunned me. You went through hunger, poverty, abuse in all ways, and you're glad because you're just a beautiful, graceful lady. And you
so
said that you
kind,
wouldn't
thank you.
be who you were if that hadn't happened.
Exactly.
What an
You know,
attitude that is.
but you
How
know what it
beautiful.
is? Our hurt. Our compassion that we have today. If you have compassion and love for others, that most likely came through a dark time in your life.
That is
You
true.
know what it feels like. You know
Yeah.
what it feels like to hurt, and then you become compassionate. Or even though my mother was, like I said, fiercely devoted to us, and she taught us compassion and love. Everything else was chaotic. Not, I was so yearning for stability, but she gave us love and
Mm.
compassion. She instilled compassion in us, and I think that is key.
Vivian,
And
do you hold any grudges? Is there anything that you feel? Is there something in your heart that you can't let go of certain
no,
things?
no,
No.
I have absolute forgiveness, and I think when people do certain things, I mean, depends what degree, of course, but certain things that, for instance, let's say my teacher who condemned me dumb to my mother. Can you imagine that? What that does to your head as a child? Even her, I forgive her because she didn't know any better. You know, it's no good to have this poison inside. You know, you grow poison within you if you don't let go. I have learned one thing. I've learned to detach myself from a state of gentleness. If you do that, and I don't allow any unloving thoughts to enter my mind or my heart, absolutely, I won't allow it. And when you are that way, you become strong because love takes over, and love and hate does not work together. It does not work together. So no, I am glad. I don't wish this on my children, on anyone, what I went through. But looking back at my life, which has become so successful because I've met the love of my life, my husband.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk
Oh,
about your successes.
yes, that was that is the good part now.
Yes.
When I was 20, eventually I got a job at the same company at Volkswagen, which I hated so much, up in the accounting department.
Mhm.
They hired me for position as a secretary in the service department, and I became the secretary from the service manager of the service manager. And when I was 20, one day a man walked in and he bought a Porsche and he became my husband. Is that funny? Is that strange?
That's wonderful. And he's
And
provided a wonderful life for
oh,
you.
the most beautiful, but of course, again, I tell you, Suzanne, I believe that because of my experiences in the past, the experience that my mother had with the man that she married, taught me this is not what I want. And I decided if I ever get married, when I get married, I'm going to do my absolute best. And right from the get-go, I always did my best. And he was also an immigrant, a German immigrant, a child of the war. And he was the wind beneath my wings. He encouraged me to learn and grow. I learned to pilot a plane. I ran a marathon. I helped him in this business. For someone that was condemned dumb, you know,
You've
that
done pretty
is,
well.
I've done very well. And
And you're a
I
cancer survivor.
and
I
I'm a
mean,
cancer survivor.
my
That
goodness.
came later on, yeah. But in any case, my husband made me what I am. He said one day, he said to me, you know, when I met you, I bent down. It's like bending down. I picked up a stone that looked different from all the others. And when I polished it, it was enduring, and it was a diamond, something like that. And I thought that was a sweet compliment. But he was been always kind, always encouraging me to learn and grow, and being respectful and loving. And it was became very successful in his business and investments. We moved to California, and we took another big step. We became American citizens. And
Oh,
that was quite an experience when the speaker welcomed us as American citizen. I became real emotional, and I thought, this is the first time I had that sense of belonging. And I am so grateful, and my husband too, to this country, because this is still a country of possibilities. And I
Vivian,
love Americans. They're open-hearted, and I'm just proud to be an American. So that it is the first time I had that real sense of belonging. Because if you put your best foot forward and you work hard and you try your best, you will make it in this country. It's perseverance, determination, hard work ethics, I think, are very important. And I
absolutely.
always had that.
Oh, I wish we had so much more time to talk. Your book is From Rubble to Champagne, Rising from the Ashes of War-Torn Berlin to a Life of Grace, Beauty, and Gratitude. And Vivian, if you had some final words to say to someone who's struggling right now, what would you say to them?
So don't give up hope ever. You know, there's always obstacles can be overcome. Don't give up hope. Uh, Hard work, determination, perseverance, stay focused, and have a purpose. I believe in a purpose. I think your quality in it's not just to survive, but to do something good for yourself and for the world around you. Purpose is everything. I get up every morning, and even when people ask me, "How are you?" I don't know any other answer. I'm great. Life is beautiful. And I tell you, there's no such thing as aging, as old age. There's no age really, or getting old. Yes, there's age, but there's no such thing as getting old if you maintain curiosity and interests. You maintain the career, and there's such a powerful reserve of wisdom to do something with that, to do something with your life that you haven't done before. And what I've done is I've written my book just to show you. And at 70, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I of course was quite a shock. But I went through this radiation, the operation, all that. I've been cancer-free for 7 years, and I've been even more grateful. Gratitude is everything. My book is about gratitude. And I wrote this book as a gift to my husband for his 80th birthday to thank him for all he's done for me. And at the same time, I want to help other people.
Well, if you're just listening to the interview and you don't have the opportunity to see how beautiful Vivianne is, I can tell you, you've been honest about your age. What, 77, right?
I'm proud of my age, yes.
You look 43 or 45 years old.
Well,
you
thank you.
Beautiful inside and outside, and your story is so inspirational. And we do have to wrap up here, but I want to encourage you, if you're watching this video, if you're listening to this interview, the book is called From Rubble to Champagne, Rising from the Ashes of War-Torn Berlin to a Life of Grace, Beauty, and Gratitude. I want to just ask you, think about purchasing this book. Pick it up, read it, and be filled with love and hope, and see the perseverance and the beauty in the hard times that Vivianne went through. And I think that you'll find a lot of common ground with her. So thank you again, Vivianne. Where is the book available?
It's available at Amazon.com and also Barnes & Noble. And I also have a website, and website is Vivianne123. And then Facebook, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, yes.
Very good. You're everywhere.
Everywhere, yes. And this coming Sunday, I have a book signing here, which is a nice way to start my book, to get my book rolling. Yeah. But the message is hope and love and hope and light is the message of my book. And it's a brutally honest story, because you do in the beginning wonder, should I reveal everything? But I did not want to cheat the reader. I revealed everything. And I think when we open up, it's about connection. It's a vulnerability, but it's about connecting. It's, here I am. This is it. This, here I am. You open yourself up to other people, and that way you connect.
Absolutely.
It's all about connecting, I think.
Vivianne, thank you so much. What a special time to be able to have with you. Thank you for sharing. Have a great day, and I hope that we can connect again.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me and allowing me to have a voice. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.